What's up, everyone? Happy Monday night. Brendan Gulick and Anthony Moeglin with you on the Monday after the Big Ten championship game, the Monday after the college football playoff field has officially been set, and on a Monday where Ohio State is publicly no longer licking its wounds, but probably internally still feeling the sting from Saturday night's disappointment. I don't know if I would call it a debacle. I don't think I would say it was embarrassing, nothing quite like that, but probably just disappointing more than anything else because the Bucs just flat out didn't get it done. We're going to dive into quite a bit of that as we, try to figure out the aftermath of exactly what went wrong for Ohio State and then turn the page to moving forward here now that we know what the CFP field looks like and Ohio State's path to a potential back-to-back national championship. Megs, I didn't really think this was the show we were going to do on a Monday night, but here we are.
Yeah, I mean, it was it's just the way it is. And I honestly think, and we'll get into it here in a little bit, but I honestly think that similar to how it happened last year, I know we talked about it on Saturday right after the game, and I thought you provided some really good insight that it was such a different loss when they fell to Michigan, but I do think that there can be some good taken in these losses. And for Ohio State, it's largely been a year where they kind of been able to kind of coast through it. They've been the better team every single Saturday. They've had mistakes that got covered up every week because they were just better than the opponent. And then it comes out on Saturday night in Indianapolis, and they fall. And this gives them an opportunity to kind of reset a little bit, get remotivated, and then begin that 1-week season, if you will, into the playoffs here. And they got 3 games to get back to the national championship. And I think that this group is going to be very motivated to do so. So that part does excite you, but you do feel that little bit of like, did we have to do it in a loss? But sometimes losses aren't the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, I mean, they're not the worst thing in the world when it doesn't cost you everything. And at this point, it cost a lot. I mean, it was literally in a championship game, but it didn't cost you your ultimate goal of trying to win a national championship. So, you try to keep learning from it and move forward. Obviously, the irony of the final score being the same as last year's Michigan game, which that was a debacle. When you're a 3-touchdown favorite and you lose straight up, that's a debacle. Totally different set of circumstances than playing against an Indiana team that's very good. And everybody knew coming in that they were very good. But I think everybody expected Ohio State to win the game. And look, it wasn't a coin flip. Ohio State was, depending on the sports book, a 3.5 or 4 point spread. But just a really disappointing night because I think there were some moments where Ohio State maybe tried to get a little too cute with their formations. Perhaps they overthought a little bit of that, and we'll dive into that. I also think there was some level of the intensity on the defensive side in the second half that had a little bit of a letdown, some of which might be attributed to not having a deficit in the second half of a game literally all year. And when you go all the way down the field and you try to convert inside the 5-yard line on 4th and 1, and Julian slipped and he didn't get it, it takes a little bit of the wind out of your sails. If you'd have told me before the game that you'd give up 1 touchdown and 2 field goals, I would have said, yeah, Ohio State's probably going to be in pretty good shape. But the offense wasn't quite enough. And I think as we look at, the schematics of all of that, that was, there are things we can point out in that. And as anybody can see that's watching us, we'll kind of dive into all that on our third topic of the night. I don't want to get too far.
Wait, I was thinking, I was like, I should have just been smarter than I normally am and just put it first because
smarter than you normally are.
Yeah,
so
I'm really stupid. I'm normally stupid.
I'm normally really intelligent. I should have been even better.
Dumb, and that mistake was dumber than normal. So there you go.
All right. Let's start with segment number 1, shall we? College football playoff field is set. I don't think there were any enormous surprises. USF?
Oh my God. It's the wrong one.
Jiminy Christmas.
Son of a gun. Good call. I was trying to get it. See, that's unprepared.
Yeah, he's already putting Brian Hartline and the Bulls in the playoffs.
There we go.
Sweetness. All right. James Madison and Oregon are going to play against each other for the right to play against the Texas Tech Red Raiders. And, James Madison does nothing for exciting a national fan base. I have long advocated for loving the fact that the little guy gets a chance to get in. I think it's part of what makes college sports fun. But I also think college sports have changed so much since then that maybe that's not the right thing to do anymore, because Notre Dame or BYU would throttle, and I really feel that truly would throttle James Madison. What are they, like 3 touchdown dogs to Oregon? I mean, that's not fun for a playoff game. So we'll see.
It's that's the frustrating part to me, is that, like, yes, the arguments are happening all over the place, and a lot of people are having a lot of fun at Notre Dame's expense, which is all totally fair, right? And all of that does it all makes a lot of sense. But the way that the rules line up for the college football playoff, it does kind of stink, because you're looking at 2 games with a group of 5 teams that are three score differences, right? They're 3 score spreads right now, and like you said, that's no fun for anybody. But there's got to be, I don't know, man, because I do agree that you can't just start the year and half of college football doesn't have a chance to play for a national title. That part feels a little unfair, but also the reality is most of college football doesn't have the chance to play for a national title. There's got to be a happy medium. I've said this several times on our shows publicly, and every time I'm asked about it, privately. I love the playoff. I love the expanded playoff. I think it's just not perfect there yet, and there's still some tweaks to get it there. But you're looking at this 12-team set right now, and you're like, 2 of the first 4 games I'm not even going to turn them on because they're already over, and then that part's frustrating.
Yeah, and listen, Alabama, Oklahoma, I think has a chance to be a decent game.
Yeah.
The winner's going to play Indiana. Truth be told, my hope was that Ohio State was going to fall to 3.
Yeah,
because I would have loved Ohio State to have to go through the winner of Tulane, Ole Miss, instead of the winner of Miami and Texas A&M. Would have certainly preferred that route, but it is what it is. I don't really know that I think there's a good chance that the 5, 6, 7, or 8 seeds are going to be upset. I think Alabama, Oklahoma could be a good game. I know Miami is probably the better roster if you just look top to bottom against A&M, but A&M playing at home, and A&M has some steam. I'm kind of leaning toward A&M in that game, but I think it'll be a good game. I don't think the other 2 games are going to be good at all. So I'm sort of expecting that Ohio State is going to play A&M. And for all the folks that are saying, why did Ohio State go to the Cotton Bowl? The CFP specifically said, we want to avoid a potential Ohio State-Miami game played in Miami's home stadium in South Florida. So instead, they give Ohio State a chance to play in the Cotton Bowl against Texas A&M. I don't know that that's like that much of a better option. Personally, I think I'd rather play Miami in Miami than Texas A&M in Dallas, but I don't know. It is what it is. You're going to have to go beat a really good football team in a tough environment.
Well, how about this? The Ohio State's going to play in the first 2 Cotton Bowls of the modern playoff era, one against the Texas Longhorns, which is a home game for Texas, and potentially the other against Texas A&M. So it's like, hey, we talked about –
thankfully they exercised some demons from the previous one, because the game against Missouri was probably in the last 25 years of Ohio State football, buddy, that's pretty high on the list of games that I want to erase from my memory.
That was one of our first. That was our first season. We were then on SI at the time. But here's a question for you, only because I wrote this last night, so I have the answer. How many Cotton Bowls do you think Ohio State's played in? And if you know the answer, we can just talk about it.
Yeah, I don't know the answer, but I don't think it's many. Is it? Will this be 3?
This will be 4. This will be 4. They played in 1987. It was actually a fun trip down memory lane here. Jump over. The story went live last night over on Buckeyes Roundtable. But Chris Carter was one of the leading receivers for the Buckeyes, and he had a touchdown. He had 60 yards receiving and touchdown. And the player of the game was Chris Spielman. He played linebacker for the Bucs. So pretty cool stuff. But yeah, only this will be their 4th trip to the or their 5th game in the Cotton Bowl. They're 3-1 as it stands right now. But yeah, I thought that was funny too. Like, hey, we're gonna avoid Miami home game, but we're gonna give Texas a little bit of a home game. And it gives me memories of us calling the Tennessee fans calling the shoe Neyland North last year, and it's turning out that Jerry's World is just the shoe South, because it's just what it comes down to be if it does shake out that way.
Well, I mean, the good news is Ohio State fans travel extremely well, especially this time of year. It's a lot of fun, so that'll negate some of it for sure.
Brendan, I just clicked on something here. I got Twitter going on the other screen, and it just showed a bracket of last year's rules under this year's circumstance. And oh my God, Ohio State would have had an absolute layup to at least the semifinal. It would have been 5 versus 12, which Ohio State would have been the 5th seed, or potentially the 5th seed, however it would have shook out, because it was all conference champions were the top 4. They would have played JMU, who would have been the last seed in. They would have played JMU in their first game, with the right to play Tulane in the second game. So it would have been JMU versus Tulane. That's kind of what we're signing up for. It's a good first adjustment from last year to this year, but then there's still some more room to go.
Yeah, I don't even think this is on our docket, but I don't blame Notre Dame one bit for opting out of this game. I would never have said that. I would never have said that 2-3 years ago. Now, what's the point? And you know, if you want to think about it from like a business perspective, with these rosters that are worth tens of millions of dollars now for these kids getting all this money to go play in a bowl game that does absolutely nothing for them, it's kind of a meaningless game. Do they get extra practice time to evaluate some of those younger players? Yeah, I guess that's the one trade-off. But I think Notre Dame is well within its decision to say, you know what, thanks, but no thanks. If we weren't good enough after you jumped us and led us to believe one thing for however many weeks, and now you're not going to put us in the playoff when the team that you put in front of us also didn't play, sorry. Now, I agree that Miami should get into the playoff if it's head-to-head. That has to matter. But Notre Dame was led to believe one thing, and they didn't get in. I don't have a problem with them saying we're out.
No, it was fascinating to watch the reaction on it, because, I mean, there's going to be, according to all of the response here, there's going to be the Pop-Tarts Bowl is going to set an attendance record and a viewership record, because it appears that everybody cares about all of these bowls now all of a sudden. Yeah, man, dude, I think these bowl games are in like serious jeopardy, and this
bowl season's dead.
It's been dying. This is like a knife in the heart to bowl season, because they're like, all right, this has been the reality for a long time. And, I don't know how
I don't mean to cut you off, but I think, you're tongue in cheek about the Pop-Tarts Bowl. That is the future. Like, if you want bowl games to still be around, it has to be for teams that have zero chance of ever getting in the college football playoff, and to do it in a way where you're marketing something entirely separate. And they got to figure out a way to pay the players to be in those games if they want them there. Or else maybe the teams come in, but like the big players from those teams, why would a guy go potentially get hurt and risk his NFL draft stock if he ends up being a really good player on a team that's not going to get in the playoff? I just think bowl season stuff, it's fun. I like watching football, so I'll watch it. But in terms of like the casual fans who just want to go watch like good ball, and I say this lovingly, like, is OU against UNLV in the Frisco whatever bowl, like, is that going to be good football? We'll find out. Maybe. Probably not.
You unironically started the show by talking about the Cotton Bowl from 3 years ago. That was that. Everybody from Ohio State didn't make the playoff. They all sat out, and I looked at the stats last night. Lincoln Keenholz started. 6 for 18 for 80 yards and no touchdowns. Emeka Egbuka was a freshman at the time. That was his first game. Travion Henderson was the star player for the Buckeyes, also a freshman. He had 19 carries for 72 yards or something like that.
Go look at the starting offensive line.
Yes.
It was decimated in that game. It was I don't
and the Buckeyes scored 3 points. Like you said, that's one you want to erase from your memory. That was a waste of time for you.
I need the men in black to just go. Yeah, I'm out. You're either in the playoff or you're not. And I think here's the thing. In my opinion, Ohio State is the best team in the country, but they lost fair and square to Indiana. Indiana certainly proved that they're not a fluke. They beat some good teams this year, and in their biggest game, I would argue maybe in program history, they won. So they are also at that very high upper echelon. I think both of those two teams are considerably better than Georgia and Texas Tech, although I don't think Texas Tech gets quite enough respect from non-Raider fans, because I actually think Texas Tech is pretty good. After that, I mean, Oregon is solid, but they're beatable. Ole Miss, no idea what to expect from them after everything they've gone through. Oklahoma, they're fine. Alabama, they're fine. I just don't look at a lot of these other teams and think like, Ohio State's in trouble. So I would be very surprised if we see any upsets in that first round of the playoffs. And then it's just going to be about executing, and Ohio State's going to have to play Georgia. The good news is if they do that, they're not going to play them in their own backyard, because assuming that Indiana is going to beat Oregon, which they've already done, Indiana will have its choice on where it wants to go between Atlanta or Phoenix, and they will get the site that is closer to their campus, which is Atlanta. So Ohio State won't play Georgia in Atlanta again. They would have to go do it out in the desert. Does that help them or hurt them? I don't know, but at least it's not, right in the heart of SEC country.
So then the question then becomes, if from your personal perspective, when you look at this 12-team playoff and they're talking about a 16-team playoff, in this year, what if it was just a 4-team playoff and it was Indiana, Ohio State, A&M, and
those are the 4 best teams in the country. But I guess the only thing I would say to that is, I do think Alabama, Oklahoma is going to be a good playoff game.
Yeah.
Right. Like I am interested in watching that game. Again, I don't know that I feel that way about, will I actually watch JMU and Oregon? Yeah, I will. Mm-hmm. Obviously because of the fact that Ohio State's going to play the winner of Miami and A&M, I'll watch that game, but I would probably watch it anyways. I think it's got a chance to be a good game. I think the idea of having playoff games on campus sites is sick. Love it. I'm all about that. I just hope that they're good games. And, the good news for college football is that you've got 4 schools that play in, pretty passionate, good, fun environments that are going to be hosting games. So that part's good.
Dude, I just wish, man, I wish they would do the first 2 rounds at home site. So it's like, all right, those 5 through 8 get a home game, and then 1 through 4 get a home game, and then you do the corporate sites.
I totally agree, because how cool would it be for the top 4 seeds who get that bye to be able to play a on-campus home playoff game? Like, that would be awesome.
Unreal.
But there's so much money tied up in a lot of the major New Year's Six bowls. I just don't know what the future of all that is. So we'll see. All right. Big news today as we move off of the field being set in what does not feel like a surprise at all, but I'm glad it's official. Julian Sayin is a Heisman finalist. 17th different Buckeye to become a Heisman Trophy finalist, and the 7th basically since Ryan Day got here, 2018. I found that note particularly important at this point. Obviously, the Buckeyes did not have a Heisman Trophy finalist last year. Marv in 2023, CJ in back-to-back years, 21 and 22. Justin Fields and Chase Young both in 19, and Dwayne Haskins in 2018. Haskins the first one since Troy Smith won it in 2006. I don't think Julian's going to win the award. but is he one of the 4 best players in the country and deserving of going to New York? I mean, if you argue against that, you haven't been watching football.
Yeah, he's what a good year for him. And thinking back, Brendan, like let's put our minds back to July and August.
Yeah.
Like try to tell me somebody who had bigger shoes to fill and more pressure on their head than Julian Sain. And he wasn't announced the starter till midway through August, midway through camp. But I mean, this is not a true freshman. This is a freshman player who's never started before and is going to have to fill in the shoes of a guy who finally took Ohio State to the national championship and put together the greatest four-game stretch you'll ever see. Like, okay, new guy from California, go step in and do that. Oh, and by the way, your first game's against the number 1 team in the country. Like, okay, that's a tough room to come into and a tough job to fill. And from day one, Brendan, he's just filled it with poise. He's made all the right decisions. Not every game's been like, hey, highlight real tape. You know, I think back to the Texas game, and I remember vividly the first words Ryan Day said after that game were, it was just about winning the football game today. We were going to win the football game no matter what. And Julian was great. Was good in that game. Yeah. And then from there, dude, he just caught his stride and just took off, man, and had put together one heck of a season for a young kid.
For sure. The numbers are incredible. The thing that's stuck in my head, and I guess we're kind of quasi moving forward because this topic is an easy one to dwell on, but, you know, Julian was sacked 5 times on Saturday. Mm-hmm. The Buckeyes suffered 9 TFLs in that game on Saturday. And I say that because in the previous 12 games of the year, Julian had only been sacked 6 times total. I mean, he was under a lot more pressure. I know you've gone back and watched, you know, at least a good chunk of, if not the entire game at this point. Mm-hmm. How much of that pressure can you zero in on who's playing right guard? And how much of that is Julian's not seeing it quite right because, you know, Brian Haynes did a really good job with his defensive coverages.
Yeah, there's an element of both. And I'd say this, that defense was by far and away the best defense at every level that Ohio State's played. So up front, it was the best. The linebackers were the best, and the secondary was the best. And the one thing that stands out when you watch a Kirk Cignetti team is that they're so disciplined. So I want to talk about like his eyes first. There were no coverage mistakes at all, bar none, 0 in that game. Indiana was where they were supposed to be, when they were supposed to be there. And because of that, that forces a quarterback to go, oh, 1's covered. I got to get to 2. I got to get to 3. I got to get to 4. And when that's the case, you're holding on to that football a little bit longer. Everyone talked about, you know, hey, his eyes he's not seeing it well. He's not seeing it well. Well, it's because a lot of stuff was covered up, you know, and that was kind of the truth of the matter. And when that's the case, your guys up front have to elevate their game. And they just did not, right? There's some guys who struggled up front, but also it's hard to block for 4 or 5 seconds too. So that was the best defense that Ohio State has faced. Now, where it comes back to bite you, and I go back to, I just turned my TV on, and for some reason it was on. The game was being replayed on FS2, and it was that final drive, and that final 3rd down play before they kicked the field goal. They did a play that's now common stance or it's very common in all of football now, where the quarterback's under center, reverses out, fakes a handoff to the running back, and the running back goes right into the flat. It's an impossible cover because the linebacker has to come towards the line of scrimmage and then over to the flat. It's impossible. And Julian, because he was just not seeing it well all game and kind of starting to predetermine stuff, misses an easy 1st down completion to Bo Jackson. Like easy, and goes to the tight end, gets knocked away. They missed the field goal. So he wasn't seeing it well, and they weren't protecting it well. And it was just a factor of him seeing the best defense he's seen all season long. I nerded out there for a second. But
well, no, but isn't there something to what you're saying on when you miss some of that easy stuff?
Yep.
It's not just because, oh my God, he didn't see that play. It's the residual effects of previous plays that like plant that little doubt or you know, you're speeding up in a way that you're not used to being sped up. So what you usually would never miss, you miss.
Yes. Brendan, remember the clip that went super viral when Sam Darnold said he was seeing ghosts? Like that's a real thing. Like everyone made fun of him, right? That's a real thing because when you spend all game and number 1's covered all game long, every play you drop back, 1's covered. When 1's open all game long for 3 straight hours, he's been covered. So your mind's already off of like, if 1's not there, I got to get to 2, right? And you're seeing it and 1's there, but but your mind's already on 2. And so like, that's when that stuff starts to happen and you're seeing ghosts, if you will. But yes, you're exactly right. When that gets pounded into your head, play after play after play after play, the results are what we saw. And honestly, I've been there before. You called a game of mine where I was so bad in doing that and seeing ghosts like that. That is a young quarterback's mistake. That is a freshman quarterback who's never been in that big high leverage moment that makes that mistake. You get better from situations like that, which is the one silver lining you can take away from that.
I picked the brain of a former D1 offensive coordinator this afternoon on why Ohio State may have decided to go with the game plan they did with a lot of 13 personnel. Not exclusively, but they ran 1 running back, 3 tight ends a lot. And by virtue of doing that, you're taking at least one of Jeremiah or Carnell off the field. And Ohio State's tight end room, I think, is good. They're certainly not. Nobody in that room is a better option than Carnell Tate. But I don't think that Ohio State is thinking about it in that light. The way it was explained to me, which I thought had some validity to it, and I want to pose it to you as a theory. The thought process from this former offensive coordinator was, by doing that, they're taking Indiana out of a nickel defense where they are way more effective and way faster than when Indiana's in their base 4-3. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, Ohio State felt like by doing that, they had better guys at tight end than a third linebacker for Indiana. And even if they took Carnell off the field, that they felt like it was a net positive. I don't know that I would go all the way there, but the logic I thought was interesting. What say you?
Yeah, I think that is a good game plan, right? That's the good thought going in. And then, Brendan, like, that's when you get into the game and it's not working. And it's like, all right, hey, our massive advantage is when our 2 best players are on the field. That's that in-game adjustment that has to happen, and it didn't. And that's the frustrating part. It was like, we're into the 4th quarter. We're coming out. That play I just described, guess who was not? Zero receivers were on the field in that final 3rd down play. It's like, what are we doing here? We didn't make the adjustment all game long. We have 10 points to show for it. How have we gotten here? I think the logic is absolutely there. That is a great approach to take into the football game. And then when it's not working, you have to adjust off of it. And that's just what you didn't see from the Ohio State offensive staff, in my opinion.
And listen, how much of that was a distraction with all that's going on with Brian Hartline? I mean, I'm saying this tongue in cheek. Is he more interested in figuring out real estate in South Florida than he is in coaching Ohio State? Like, the answer to that is no. You're trying to go out and you're trying to win, but you only have a certain allotted time that you can dedicate to all this. And now his time is divided. And so should he be the play caller the rest of the way? I could listen to an argument against that, but he's going to be. I hope they can figure it out.
He's absolutely going to be, and for some reason we didn't change. This didn't change. So apologies on my side. But yeah, I mean that was one thing I wanted to kind of to pick your brain about, was that it feels kind of bizarre, the Brian Hartline situation right now, because it even came out today that Ryan said he's going to do half his time these next couple weeks in South Florida and then fly back to Ohio State to game plan for whomever they got to play. That's a tough place to be, especially for your play caller. Like, that's your most important guy, and it just feels like they're handling this in a very bizarre way, because I don't know, it's not the approach I would take, and you hope it doesn't impact the offense that's on the field, but
how can it not?
How can't it, right? Like, he's in a team meeting this morning with the USF players, and you're like, what? That seems just weird. It just seems so weird to me. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know the right answer to it either.
Well, but I mean, maybe Ohio State doesn't have a better option internally right now. Maybe Ryan has realized how much is on his plate, and it's not appropriate. Maybe he feels like, listen, could I call the plays? Of course I could, but maybe he internally just doesn't feel like it's going to give the team the best chance to win a national championship if he does. and maybe he doesn't feel like somebody else is well groomed enough for that responsibility. So he must feel like this is their best option. And again, like that, Ryan's being paid big dollars to make those decisions and to win games. He knows that. We're not saying anything that he hasn't already considered on his own.
Well, and I would even ask too,
right.
to a conversation you and I had at the end of last week, and it was just like looking at this team and this roster where it's like, hey, at what point is, at what point do you just pull the plug on it, right? And like, do you just do it and just move on and just, hey, take whatever's in-house and in store that you have? And you're right, maybe he just doesn't trust what he's got, or maybe it's just working well enough. I don't know, man. I don't know the right answer to it. But it feels like what they're doing right now isn't the right answer. And we'll see. We'll see how it ends up ultimately shaking out.
One other thing that I really want to make note of, I have not shied away from publicly saying how much I really don't love all that CJ Donaldson brings to this team, and that I want to see Bo Jackson on the field more. However, it was extremely clear, if you watch the game on Saturday, how valuable Donaldson was in pass protection. And even when he clear in two ways: one, when he was on the field, and two, when he wasn't. James Peoples got flattened like a pancake, and he has one snap, and it blew the whole play up. And so there was a part of me that's kind of like, all right, well, Donaldson clearly, has the trust of the coaching staff to be out there and has some value. And if he's going to be a good pass pro, even if he is only, on the field for primarily those situations, and they put him in on some goal line stuff, like, I still don't think that he is anywhere near as effective as Bo Jackson is, but I can understand from a personnel perspective why they would have him in the game. Yeah. And I thought he was really valuable in pass protection, and when he wasn't out there, they missed him. So just want to recognize that, because I have been critical of Donaldson this year, and I thought he had a good impact on the game.
And let's go one step further. It's obviously hindsight's always 2020. But his biggest value, not only in pass protection, but anytime it was 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 or 3rd and 2, it was hand it to 12, and he's just going to run straight through somebody to get the first down.
Yep.
There's 3 scenarios that they had that opportunity right before they kicked the field goal on 3rd and 2 when they and then they got it to the 4th and 1 where they QB sneaked it, and he didn't get any of them. So it's like, wait a second, that was his role all year long. That's kind of what he's best at. Why didn't we use him? I don't know. It's always, looking back, it's always easy, but man, feels like a missed opportunity there.
I don't know if this is so much part of this topic or the previous one. It's kind of both in the same light. Never glad to see Ohio State lose, and I want to come back and talk about the kicking side of this in a second, but on a defensive perspective, I think there is some element of Ohio State played, in my opinion, a fast and violent first half defensively. I loved the way they played defense in the first half. The second half, I thought they lost a little juice. And I think some of that came from the fact that the offense wasn't quite as effective. First of all, in the first half, they didn't convert a single 3rd down. And then when you had the second last drive, Ohio State had the ball, the long drive that ended with the Julian saying, slip on 4th and 1 when he didn't convert, and they overturned it with replay. I just felt like that took a little wind out of their sails. Mm-hmm. And I realized that, Indiana didn't go and score after that, but it just felt like they lost a little bit of their edge. And then obviously, again, the last drive Ohio State had, another lengthy drive that came up with 0 points after missing a kick. In the second half, it's kind of hard to complain about the defense. They only gave up 1 score. It's not like they played poorly, but Indiana was able to move the ball effectively when it needed to keep the game moving and keep controlling the clock. Whereas Ohio State's defense at times this year has suffocated and overwhelmed an opponent so much that even if the offense isn't just out there body blow after body blow slugging away, the defense has been able to get the ball back to them quickly so they can get in a better rhythm. And sometimes that's when the scoreboard inflates a little bit. I don't know what they need to do to look at that second half on film to say, hey, listen, like, we can't let the circumstances around the game affect our energy level and our focus. Again, like we talked a little bit about it on Saturday, Kenyatta Jackson was held, in my opinion, at least 5 times. It didn't get whistled. I'm not going to sit here and play complain about the refs thing, because that's not. It is what it is. There's penalties on every play that aren't called. Most referees will tell you that plays, especially at the line of scrimmage, there's holding on every play. There's a little bit of this or that, potentially hands to the face, grabbing jerseys, whatever. They really only throw those flags when it directly impacts the result or the outcome of that play. I don't know how a flag wasn't thrown on Jackson, because I thought there were several that directly affected the result of the play. That's neither here nor there. My point is, I think this particular defensive unit got tested in a way on Saturday that it hadn't been. And what I learned there wasn't that they fell apart or they crumbled. I think they just lost their edge a little bit. Yeah. And not everybody, but Jermaine Matthews probably had his worst game of the year. It doesn't make him a bad player, but he didn't play that great. I thought Caden McDonald played great. Caden Curry played great. Arvell had a really, really good game. Sonny Styles played excellent. Caleb Downs played excellent. McLean was okay. I thought IGB was okay. But there was a little bit of a drop off, in my opinion. And I hope that the conversation, again, circling back to the beginning of all this, where we talked about the mirroring of 13-10 last year against Michigan, that was a totally different vibe and feel inside the Woody. Not necessarily finger pointing, but like a tough love conversation between teammates and Ryan Day on, we got to figure this thing out. And it was everybody get on the same page. Come on now, with high tension. None of that this year. Guys are just upset that they blew it in the Big Ten championship game, but nobody's looking around going, major problems. We got to figure this thing out.
No, one of the things that stood out to me was where Indiana found success. And I think that this is something that, other teams will try to replicate against Ohio State. I don't think they'll be able to, because basically Indiana matched Ohio State's NFL defense with an NFL offensive approach, where they found matchups, right? And they were not going to try to beat Sonny Styles in the run game. They were not going to try to beat Caleb Downs in the pass game. You talk about IGB. They were not going to try to throw at IGB. They were going to find their spots, right? Who gave up the final catch? It was Jermaine Matthews. It was over top of Jermaine Matthews. Lorenzo Styles got picked on kind of over and over and over again. And it wasn't that he played bad, but they were high leverage spots where, hey, in those games when field position matters and time of possession matters, right? Getting a first down when you're backed up in your own red area is huge, right? Getting a first down, before half or whatever it may be, those are big plays. And Indiana attacked Ohio State as such. And they were really smart about who they were trying to throw against and who they were trying to run against. That was what I was most impressed about. The reason they were able to do that is because I think they have the best quarterback in college football. I don't think you're going to see that again until you play Indiana again, which would be in the national championship. So, it was good to just see Ohio State have to go and make plays and get tested the way they did, because we haven't seen it before. They haven't played in the fourth quarter before, and you saw there's so much there that you're like, oh, if we get better at these couple things, we hold Indiana to 10 points instead of 13 and we win the football game, And, there's just so many of those little margin type plays that I think they're going to make in the future now because of this.
All right, last thing looking backwards here is, on the kicking front. I was just thinking about this today of, Ryan Day's got 11 losses, and I think you could look at half of those and say that, bad special teams have been like the reason that ultimately things, didn't work out. And certainly within the last couple of years, Indiana this year, Michigan last year, Georgia in the semifinal, like those stick out in a big way. I'm not sitting here dunking on Jaden Fielding. It is what it is. I hope he can get it right. They need him, man. And is there a better option on their roster? The only thing I would say is, if there was, I would expect the coaching staff to have figured that out by now. if he's the best option they got, then they need to use him. I don't know what it's going to take. I hope he's got a short memory. Missing a chip shot like that stinks. Now, is that the reason they lost? No, but it sure was a big one.
Yeah. And everybody, I said this on Saturday night after the game, like everybody handled it properly. They said all the right things, but man alive, like you got a 29-yard attempt from inside the 10-yard line. Yes, it's a tight angle. I mean, it's hard. That's hard to miss that kick. And yes, it's a high pressure situation, but at some point you got to figure it out, man. And it's the part that really is frustrating is I thought he was having a really solid season, right? He was playing really well. And then in the most high leverage situation, he fell back into a big mistake. Unfortunate for the kid, but hopefully, like you said, short memory, come back and figure it out again, because you're going to have to make a kick somewhere in the playoff to win a football game or to stay in a football game, and they're going to need him. It's simple as that.
All right, college football playoff Final Four predictions.
Let's go. What do you got? JMU.
Boring. Honestly, chalk. All the way through. These first couple of rounds, and then I think Ohio State beats Indiana in a title game because I don't think Ohio State's going to lose to Indiana twice this year. I think they'll learn from this and be better. I mean, is it possible Alabama beats Oklahoma? Yeah, it is. But I kind of expect OU to win that game. And Miami, like I said, I think Miami's a better roster than Texas A&M. But I think A&M's it's a weird cult they've got down to College Station, man. It's a weird thing. And, I think they're delusional enough. I mean, how many A&M fans did you hear saying, like, we should be the number one team in the country this year? They're very good, but they're not the number one team in the country.
No, and hey, I saw a stat today that they joined the SEC in 2019, and they've only played Georgia one time. They had the whole bottom half, and it's pure luck of the draw. And like, this is not to take away from them, but they had seeds or teams 9 through 16 on their SEC schedule this year.
Yeah, it was the weakest schedule ever.
Yes, and it was like, oh my god, they really haven't played anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be interested to see if Tulane can beat Ole Miss. I don't know Tulane's roster up and down, but I have actually watched them a couple times this year and thought, like, yeah, okay. It's a solid team, and Ole Miss is certainly going through some bumpy pastures. Not that Tulane isn't, but I don't know. I mean, maybe something crazy can happen. I don't expect it. I think Ole Miss is going to win that game. And then I think Ohio State is going to take care of Texas A&M. I expect Georgia to beat Ole Miss again. Frankly, either way, I think the Alabama-Oklahoma winner is probably not going to win a second game. I don't know. It's possible, but I think Indiana is better than both of those teams.
Certainly.
And then at the top, I mean, Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech's defense doesn't quite get enough credit, and I think they would beat Oregon. So, I mean, I know that's boring, but I think we're looking at a Final Four of the top 4 seeds.
Yeah, I think it's going to be chalky in my opinion as well. Obviously I have Ohio State moving on, Georgia moving on. I got Indiana. Yeah, Indiana's just tough as nails, man. The one I'll go upset with one. I'll go Oregon over Texas Tech. So that sets up Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible for sure.
And I'll go Indiana versus Oregon in the top side, and then Ohio State versus Georgia in the bottom side. And then you got to come back on Thursday or on Wednesday to hear my final prediction. There we go. They call it
a tease.
Ohio State versus Indiana, a rematch. And who wins that game? I don't know, but it would be awesome.
I hope it's awesome. I hope it's as good as the game we saw on Saturday.
Yeah,
close games are fun, and they're a lot more fun when you win. Hopefully, Ohio State can figure out a way to pull that off here if they get that second crack. All right, lots more coverage coming for you all week long here at Buckeye Roundtable as we continue to evaluate what's coming here in the college football playoffs, some of the news around the program, and postseason award possibilities and things like that. Lots to come. So, by the way, we didn't even mention the fact that Berm dropped the news earlier this week that Apparently, Penn State went pretty hard after Matt Patricia. That would have been another huge distraction for the Buckeyes here this past week.
That's what I meant to bring that up earlier. All of this was to say a 13-10 loss in the most distracted Ohio State's ever been. And it's like, okay, you factor it all in, you feel good about what's going forward, and certainly looking at this playoff. I will say this is the last thing I'll say. This all just puts me back into last year and the feeling you and I had going down to Ohio State versus Tennessee. And you're like, okay, this is going to be the best environment ever. We have no idea what Ohio State is. And like, that was the precursor to what that run was, man. And it's like, this college football playoff, while it's not perfect, it's pretty darn cool, man. And it created a great story for Ohio State last year. And it's full of incredible storylines coming this way now that we're into it. So I'm fired up for it, man. It's going to be fun.
Best time of year. The Buckeyes will have to win one fewer game than they did last year after earning a bye in the first round this year. For Anthony Moeglin, I'm Brendan Gulick. Come join us, BuckeyeRoundtable.com. When you go to the website, whether you're on mobile or on your desktop, obviously you can download the Roundtable app as well and navigate to the Buckeye Roundtable page. Literally just a button on the top that says join. We don't have a subscription product. There's no cost for it. But we'd love to have you just join our community so that you can participate in the conversation and our message boards down at the bottom of the page. We've got lots of video. We've got lots of written stuff. We would really appreciate the support as we work on building Buckeye Roundtable. So BuckeyeRoundtable.com, just click join in the top right-hand corner. That would be awesome. All right, for Anthony Moeglin, I'm Brendan Gulick. See you real soon as Ohio State looks ahead toward the college football playoff.